What secrets lie hidden in a land where mountains touch the heavens, where ancient pathways once connected empires, and where time itself seems to have paused between the peaks? This is the story of Tajikistan, a nation carved from stone and silence. A country where 93% of the land rises toward the sky, where valleys shelter communities unchanged for centuries, and where the echoes of the Silk Road still whisper through high mountain passes, a place where shepherds guide their flocks along paths walked by Alexander the Great, where crystal rivers tumble from glaciers older than human memory, and where hospitality is not merely a custom, but a sacred obligation passed from generation to generation. So, if you're not in a hurry, take a moment, stay with us, and discover the forgotten valleys hidden at the roof of the world. Credibility Punch. Tajikistan, the smallest nation in Central Asia, contains within its borders some of the most extreme geography on Earth. More than half the country lies above 3,000 meters. The Pamir Mountains, which dominate the eastern region, include peaks that soar beyond 7,000 meters, making them among the highest outside the Himalayas. Ismail Somoni Peak, the nation's tallest, reaches 7,495 meters into the thin mountain air. And yet, within this vertical landscape, approximately 10 million people have built their lives. They farm terraced fields clinging to impossible slopes. They herd yaks and sheep across high pastures where summer lasts only weeks. They maintain traditions that stretch back thousands of years, preserved by the very isolation that makes their homeland so challenging. For centuries, Tajikistan sat at the crossroads of civilizations. The Silk Road passed through its valleys, carrying silk and spices, ideas and religions. Merchants and monks between China and the Mediterranean, Zoroastrians, Buddhists, and eventually Muslims, all left their marks on this mountain realm. Today, Tajikistan remains one of the least visited countries on Earth. Fewer tourists arrive here in a year than visit Paris in a single day. Those who do make the journey discover a world that seems to exist outside of time. A world of breathtaking beauty and profound silence. A world that rewards the patient traveler with experiences available nowhere else. Tucked between the towering ranges of Central Asia, where the Pamir and Tian Shan mountains converge in a frozen collision of continental plates, Tajikistan emerges from the clouds like a vision from an ancient dream. This is a land painted in extremes. Valleys so deep they seem carved by giants. Peaks so high they pierce the jet stream. Rivers so blue they appear to glow with inner light. And skies so clear that stars seem close enough to touch. The air here carries the scent of juniper and wild herbs. The silence is so complete that you can hear your own heartbeat. The light, filtered through thin mountain atmosphere, renders every stone, every blade of grass, every distant summit with crystalline clarity. This is not merely a location on a map. It is a world apart, a realm where humans have learned to live not by conquering nature, but by accepting their place within it, where every village is a monument to perseverance, where every face tells stories of hardship endured and joy discovered in the simplest things. Here, the modern world feels impossibly distant. Cell phones may occasionally find signals, but the rhythms of life follow patterns established millennia ago. Seasons dictate movement. Weather determines possibility. And the mountains, always the mountains, remind every inhabitant of their own smallness before forces beyond human control. Dushanbe, the capital of contrasts. Begin your journey in Dushanbe, the capital city nestled in a valley at the western edge of the country. With approximately 1 million inhabitants, Dushanbe is the largest city in Tajikistan, and the gateway through which most visitors enter this hidden land. The name Dushanbe means Mundi in Tajik, a reference to the weekly market that once drew traders from surrounding villages to this strategic location. That humble origin seems almost impossible to believe when you stand in the modern city center, surrounded by grand boulevards, ornate government buildings, and monuments that speak of national pride and ambition. The influence of Soviet planning remains visible throughout the city. Wide avenues lined with trees, massive public squares designed for parades and gatherings, apartment blocks constructed in the distinctive style of the communist era. Yet Dushanbe is not frozen in its Soviet past. New construction rises alongside old traditional Tajik design elements increasingly appear in public architecture. And the energy of a young population gives the city a vitality that surprises many first-time visitors. The National Museum of Tajikistan houses treasures that illuminate the long history of this region. Buddhist artifacts from the 5th and 6th centuries, Zoroastrian objects that predate Islam, Silk Road treasures recovered from archaeological sites throughout the country, and the enormous reclining Buddha of Ajina Tepe. At 13 meters, one of the largest Buddha statues ever discovered in Central Asia, not far from the city center. The Hisar Fortress rises against the backdrop of distant mountains. This ancient citadel, whose origins stretch back more than 2,500 years, has witnessed the passage of countless armies and empires. Alexander the Great may have camped near these walls. Persian kings certainly ruled from within them, and the echoes of that long history still resonate in the remaining gates, madrasas, and mausoleums. Yet the true character of Dushanbe reveals itself not in monuments but in markets. The Maragon market overflows with produce from surrounding valleys. apricots and pomegranates in summer, nuts and dried fruits in winter, spices piled in colorful mountains. And everywhere, the warm hospitality that defines Tajik culture. Travel north from Dushanbe, and the road begins to climb. Soon the Fan Mountains appear on the horizon, their jagged peaks rising like a crown of stone above the valley floor. The Fan Range is often described as the most beautiful mountain region in all of Central Asia, and while such superlatives are always subjective, even the most seasoned travelers find themselves struggling for adequate words when confronted with the reality. What makes the Fan Mountains so extraordinary is their lakes. More than 30 alpine lakes dot the high valleys, each one seemingly more perfect than the last. Their colors range from deep sapphire to brilliant turquoise to pale jade, depending on the minerals dissolved in their waters and the angle of the sun. Iskanderkul, the largest and most famous of these lakes, takes its name from Alexander the Great, who is said to have passed this way during his conquest of Central Asia. The lake stretches for more than 3 kilometers, its surface reflecting the surrounding peaks with mirror-like precision. Local legend holds that Alexander's horse drowned in these waters, giving the lake a melancholy beauty that enhances its sublime setting. Beyond Iskanderkul, more intimate lakes await discovery. Aladdin, with its vivid blue waters set against stark granite walls. The 7 lakes of Marguzor, each one a different shade, each one connected to the next by rushing streams and ancient footpaths. These are not lakes for casual tourism. Reaching them requires effort, often days of hiking through terrain that tests even experienced trekkers, and yet the effort is rewarded beyond measure. To camp beside an alpine lake at 3,000 meters, to watch the sunset paint the peaks in shades of gold and rose, to lie beneath stars so numerous they seem to form a solid canopy of light. These experiences transform travelers in ways they do not expect and cannot easily explain. The Pamir Highway, road to the sky. Continue east from the Fan Mountains, and you will eventually reach the beginning of one of the world's great road journeys. The Pamir Highway, stretching more than 1,200 kilometers from Dushanbe to Ashan, Kyrgyzstan, is not merely a route of transportation. It is an experience that imprints itself upon the soul. Officially designated as the M41, the Pamir Highway follows the path of an ancient Silk Road branch that once connected China to the markets of Persia and Rome. Soviet engineers upgraded the route in the 1930s, creating a strategic corridor that served military and administrative purposes. Today, it serves travelers seeking adventure at the roof of the world. The highway climbs through a succession of increasingly dramatic landscapes. Fertile valleys give way to barren uplands. Green vegetation yields to brown rock and white snow. The air grows thinner with each switchback, and the views expand until it seems you can see forever in every direction. At Korog, the administrative center of the Gorno-Badakhshan Autonomous Region, the highway reaches its midpoint. This small city of approximately 30,000 people serves as the commercial and cultural hub of the eastern Pamirs. Markets offer goods carried over mountain passes from Afghanistan and China. The university attracts students from throughout the region, and the botanical garden, one of the highest in the world, showcases plants adapted to extreme altitude and temperature. Beyond Korog, the highway enters the true high Pamirs here. At elevations exceeding 4,000 meters, the landscape becomes almost otherworldly. Vast plateaus stretch toward distant ranges. Yurts dot the grasslands where Kyrgyz herders pasture their animals during the brief summer months. And the silence is so profound that the wind itself seems hushed in reverence. Karakol Lake, one of the highest lakes in the world at 3,914 meters, marks the approach to the Kyrgyz border. Its dark waters, too saline and cold to support fish, reflect the surrounding peaks with haunting beauty. Meteorite impact created this lake millions of years ago, and standing on its shores, one feels connected to timescales far beyond human comprehension. The Wakhan Corridor, where worlds meet, perhaps no region of Tajikistan, embodies remoteness more completely than the Wakhan Valley. This narrow strip of territory stretches between the main body of the Pamirs and the border with Afghanistan, creating a landscape that seems suspended between worlds. The Wakhan has been a crossroads for millennia. Traders traveling between China and the West passed through these valleys. Buddhist pilgrims followed these paths to monasteries now lost to time. And in the 19th century, British and Russian empires competed for influence in what became known as the Great Game, with the Wakhan serving as a buffer zone between their expanding territories. Today, the Wakhan remains gloriously undeveloped. Villages cling to the valley floor, their stone houses blending into the landscape as if grown from the earth itself. Fields of wheat and barley provide sustenance during the brief growing season, and across the narrow Panjshir River, Afghanistan stretches southward, seemingly close enough to touch, yet separated by a border that has defined destinies for generations. The people of the Wakhan are Pamiri, an ethnic group distinct from the Tajik majority. They speak languages related to Persian, but unique to these high valleys. They practice Ismaili Islam, a branch of the faith that emphasizes education and community development, and they maintain traditions of hospitality that visitors find almost overwhelming in their generosity. To be invited into a Wakhan home is to be treated as honored guest. Tea will be offered, then food, then more tea. Questions will be asked about your family, your country, your journey. Stories will be shared, and at the end, you will be sent on your way with blessings and perhaps a small gift. Despite the fact that your hosts may have little to spare, this is hospitality as sacred duty. A recognition that in these remote valleys, survival has always depended on mutual aid. A tradition that transforms strangers into temporary family members. And a reminder that wealth is measured not in possessions, but in generosity of spirit. Ancient fortresses and forgotten kingdoms. Scattered throughout Tajikistan, often in locations that seem impossibly remote, the ruins of ancient fortresses bear witness to the long human history of this region. Yumshan Fortress, perched on a rocky outcrop above the Wakhan Valley, dates to the 3rd century BCE. Its crumbling walls once protected Silk Road caravans from bandits and invading armies. Today, they offer panoramic views of the Panj River and the snow-capped Hindu Kush mountains of Afghanistan beyond. Not far from Yamshan, the Bibi Fatima hot springs emerge from the earth at temperatures exceeding 40 degrees Celsius. Local tradition holds that these waters enhance fertility, and women from throughout the region journey here seeking blessings. The springs themselves are said to be named for the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad, connecting this remote corner of Central Asia to the broader Islamic world. In the western part of the country, the ancient city of Penjakan reveals the sophistication of pre-Islamic Central Asian civilization. This Sogdian metropolis flourished between the 5th and 8th centuries CE, serving as a major commercial and cultural center along the Silk Road. Archaeological excavations have uncovered remarkable murals, depicting scenes of daily life, religious ceremonies, and epic narratives. These paintings demonstrate artistic techniques and cultural influences from Persia, India, and China, reflecting the cosmopolitan nature of Silk Road society. Though the original city was destroyed during the Arab conquest, its ruins continue to yield treasures that reshape understanding of Central Asian history. Beyond the landscapes and monuments, what makes Tajikistan truly unforgettable is its people. In a country where life has never been easy, where mountains isolate and winters challenge, the Tajik people have developed qualities that visitors remember long after the visual memories fade. Hospitality here is not a performance for tourists. It is a fundamental value, a religious obligation, and a practical necessity refined over millennia. In a land where travelers once depended on the kindness of strangers for survival, welcoming guests became a measure of honor and faith. Even the poorest family will share whatever food they have with a visitor. Even the busiest farmer will stop work to offer tea and conversation. And the phrase "Memon Aziz asked the guest is dear" is not merely a slogan but a lived principle that shapes daily interactions. Beyond hospitality, the Tajik people demonstrate resilience that borders on the extraordinary. The civil war that followed independence in 1991 devastated the country, destroying infrastructure and displacing hundreds of thousands. Economic collapse followed. Many Tajiks were forced to seek work abroad, primarily in Russia, leaving villages populated mainly by women, children, and the elderly. And yet, recovery has come. Slowly, imperfectly, but undeniably. Roads have been rebuilt. Schools have reopened. And a new generation is growing up with possibilities their parents could not have imagined. This is resilience, not as abstract concept but as daily practice. A determination to build and rebuild, to educate and improve, to find hope in the most challenging circumstances. Life in Tajikistan follows rhythms dictated by climate and altitude. Understanding these rhythms is essential to understanding the country and its people. Spring arrives late in the high mountains, sometimes not until May or even June. When it comes, the transformation is dramatic. Snow melts in rushing torrents. Wildflowers, carpet, alpine meadows, and colors that seem almost artificial in their intensity. And herders begin the annual migration to high pastures, following routes their ancestors established centuries ago. Summer is brief but glorious. The high valleys burst with life. Farmers work from dawn to dusk, maximizing the short growing season, and the highest passes become accessible, allowing movement and trade that winter makes impossible. Autumn brings harvest and preparation. Fruits are dried for winter storage. Hay is gathered for livestock, and families begin the descent from summer pastures to permanent villages, anticipating the months of isolation ahead. Winter in the Pamirs is not for the unprepared. Temperatures plunge far below freezing, snowblocks passes for months at a time, and villages become self-contained worlds, their inhabitants surviving on stored provisions and the warmth of family bonds. This seasonal cycle shapes everything in Tajik mountain life, from agriculture to architecture to the stories told on long winter nights. A nation finding its path, modern Tajikistan faces challenges that would seem overwhelming to any nation. Landlocked and mountainous, it lacks the natural resources that have enriched some of its Central Asian neighbors. Its economy remains fragile, dependent on remittances from workers abroad and vulnerable to external shocks. And yet, progress is visible. Hydroelectric projects harness the power of mountain rivers, promising eventual energy independence. Tourism, though still modest, grows steadily as adventurous travelers discover what the country offers. An educational investment creates opportunities for young Tajiks to build futures different from their parents. The path forward is not clear, the challenges are immense. But the Tajik people have survived far worse than economic uncertainty. They have survived conquest and colonization. They have survived civil war and collapse. And they have emerged with their culture intact, their hospitality undiminished, and their connection to their mountain homeland unbroken. A final reflection, our journey through Tajikistan reveals a nation that exists at the margins of global awareness yet occupies a central place in the geography of human possibility. This is a land where the past remains present, where Silk Road echoes still resonate through mountain passes, where hospitality traditions thousands of years old continue to shape daily interactions, and where the simple act of survival in an extreme environment becomes a form of quiet heroism. The forgotten valleys of Tajikistan are not forgotten by those who live in them. They are loved with a fierce attachment that outsiders may struggle to understand. They are home in the deepest sense of the word, and they offer something increasingly rare in our connected, homogenized world, the experience of genuine difference. To visit Tajikistan is to step outside the familiar, to confront landscapes that dwarf human ambition, to encounter hospitality that challenges modern assumptions about strangers and trust, and to return home changed in ways that reveal themselves slowly over months and years. This is the roof of the world, not a destination for everyone, but for those willing to make the journey, an experience that no other place on earth can provide. Your engagement helps us continue bringing stories from the forgotten corners of our world. Thank you for traveling with us. We will see you on the next adventure.